Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Inside the Nest. I'm Sam Brouwere. Joining me on today's show are Brian Lawler, Joe Kraus, and Joe Soisson. Starting first in Buffalo, the Buffalo Bills lost to the Seattle Seahawks 31-25 in Week 9. The game didn't end without controversy, as when Bills kicker Dan Carpenter lined up for a 53-yard field goal with 3 seconds left, Richard Sherman was only called for offsides and not unnecessary roughness after he ran into Carpenter attempting to block the kick. Guys, what are your thoughts on the controversial call? I'll start with you, Brian.
Well, Sherman after the game said that he was going for the ball. He didn't want the Bills to just get a free kick. But if you look at the replay, it appears that instead of going straight for the ball, he's going right for Carpenter's knees. So it's controversial nonetheless. It would have been a game changer for the Bills had they gotten it, but unfortunately, that's just how it worked in that game.
And the same question for you, Joe West.
Yeah, I think that I think he should have been flagged for unnecessary roughness, but at the same time, Carpenter, after the hit, he was able to walk around and he did take another attempt at the kick. So, I think that I think the NFL is going to look at this one later and then kind of clearly define the rules maybe in the postseason.
And for you, Joe.
I think for me, more importantly, I mean the hit on Richard Sherman, you could say whatever you want because there really won't be a definitive answer coming from the league anytime soon. And yes, Richard Sherman has had a history of being a rough player, but the big thing that struck me was the lack of communication between the officials once again. I mean, after the play, the trainers, they did their job, they came out, made sure that Carpenter was okay, and then during that time, the officials didn't reset the game clock. So I think that that's what we should be more concerned about, whether it's a hit, because that's a ticky-tack call, regardless of what Sherman's status is. But I think more importantly, the officials, and we'll probably talk about, I think the bigger play, though, was the last play of the game when Tyrod Taylor, he was trying to look for his receiver on the outside. I believe it was Robert Woods, and Richard Sherman hit him in the back of the head, and there was no call. The ref was literally just inches away from the play, and they didn't call that. So I think the bigger picture, yes, the Carpenter kick was a big play, but the bigger picture that we should look at from this game is the lack of correct officiating, because it was just horrendous to watch.
And I agree with that Sherman call. It definitely he should have been flagged for that on that last penalty that he had. He bumped into Woods, wasn't it? Right?
Yeah.
And then going back to the Carpenter point, I look at what head of officiating, Dean Blandino, said. He said that they should have called it as unnecessary roughness, so it was obvious that the officials made a mistake in that moment to me. So, in the losing effort, Tyrod Taylor was able to finish with a career-high 289 passing yards, with Sean McCoy at 85 yards on the day, while Robert Woods had 162 yards on 10 catches. But the stats didn't prove to be enough for the Bills in the end, as like I said, they went on to lose. So, guys, what do you see that the Bills need to do well? And what did you see that the Bills did well in the game, and what do you think they need to improve on this for you, Joe?
Well, I think the big thing is that their running game was a lot better with LaShawn McCoy back in the lineup the past couple of weeks. But the offensive line, they need to get their act together because they looked like an absolute mess, and the injury to Eric Wood isn't going to help them either here in the second half. But the big kryptonite for the Bills the past few years, Sam, has been that offensive line. And, I mean, everybody's going to say, oh, it's Tyrod Taylor's fault, but he actually had, in my opinion, his best game of the season. And if the Bills want to make a playoff push, they have to get back to the basics by having a solid offensive line, because that's where their real weakness is.
And the same question for you, Joe.
I think their biggest problem is defense. There's so many injuries or problems or whatever with their offense, but I think they did well. As you said, their run game has been doing well, and they were able to pass the ball around. Tyrod Taylor had, as you said, the best game of the season. But the defense has been letting up 30 points a game, and this is a defense that people were praising for their efforts against NFC teams like Arizona, 49ers, and Los Angeles. The defense is what worries me the most, and I think it starts with, the cornerbacks were making interceptions, and now they're kind of. It's not that they're not still putting up statistics, but I think that they need to pick back up their play again.
For you, Brian.
Going off of what both Joe said here is, yes, you have to be you have to be happy with the way Tyrod Taylor and the offense were able to play. He was able to throw the ball well, get a lot of passing yards, but at the same time, if the defense isn't going to do its job, then the job the offense does, it almost doesn't matter.
And going off what you guys said, I remember last time that we made predictions for the game, I said that the defense is probably going to play well. We expected that the defense was going to play well, but we were worried about the offense as they didn't have much weapons. We didn't know if LaShawn McCoy was going to play. And then the defense in the game proved to be the Bills' kryptonite. They allowed 31 points. Russell Wilson passed for 282 yards on the day. If the Bills want to continue making this push, they sit at 4-5 right now, they need to play better on defense and continue letting LaShawn McCoy run the ball. And like Joe said, the offensive line needs to stay afloat, even though we are losing our captain on the offensive line, Eric Wood. But they definitely just need to just try to play better and try to end this playoff drought.
And I think the other thing, too, is that the defense, the reason why they've been so poor the past couple of games is because they're out there for pretty much the entire game. Without the solid offensive line, you look at the Dallas Cowboys, and I'll mention them in a little bit, but when you look at the Dallas Cowboys, why they've been so successful this season, and even a couple of years ago with DeMarco Murray, is because of that solid offensive line. If you don't have an offensive line, you're cooked. I mean, your offense can't really do anything if there's no protection up front.
Yeah, you're right there. And the Bills will be going to play the Cincinnati Bengals in Cincinnati this Sunday after their bye week from last week. And guys, what's your predictions for the game? I'll start with you, Brian.
I think they're going to win. They're going to win.
You agree?
I have Cincinnati 31-24, and I think it's going to be a problem of, I mean, Bengals had like a short week this week. They just lost to the Giants, but I think, honestly, the Giants have been playing better than the Bills, and if the Bengals can come that close to beating the Giants, I think it's going to be rough. I think the secondary is going to have their work cut out for them, and Jeremy Hill is another guy that is. I think he could, if the Bills have a chance, I think it starts with stopping Jeremy Hill.
I agree, but I think that Cincinnati, they just have way too many weapons on offense for the Bills to win this one. I mean, the secondary with Savon Gilmore and Ronald Darby, who could possibly be demoted this week from what we've heard from One Bills Drive, but I just think at Cincinnati, they have too many playmakers with A.J. Green and Tyler Eifert at tight end. It's just going to be a big headache for Rex Ryan this Sunday.
I don't know exactly why, guys, but I feel like the Bills are going to win this week, 24-13. They're going to snap their losing streak. They've lost a couple games in a row that maybe they should have won. Well, they should have maybe won the Seattle game. They should have won the Miami game, arguably. But I feel like this is a game that they should win. Like, Cincinnati's not that much better than the Bills. They lost a couple pieces from a year ago, Marvin Jones, Mohamed Sanu. They don't have as much. I don't feel like they have as much offensive weapons as they did a season ago. Yes, they still have Tyler Eifert and A.J. Green and Jeremy Hill and Giovanni Bernard. But I think that they're a beatable team for the Bills. And if the Bills want to continue to try to break this playoff streak, they need to win games like this, or probably it's not going to happen this year. All right, moving on over to the Buffalo Sabres. They have lost 4 consecutive games, losing to the Boston Bruins, Ottawa Senators, and 2 games against the New Jersey Devils. The Sabres were outscored in the 4 games by their opponents, 12-4. As of today, the Sabres are in last place in the Atlantic Division. What do you guys feel that the Sabres need to improve on? This is for you, Brian.
Well, once you start losing games consecutively, like the Sabres have, the question becomes not from, okay, we need to improve on 1 or 2 things. It becomes, we need to improve on most things. And a big kryptonite for the Sabres is right away their goaltending. Robin Leonard, you look at him, he's averaging about 3 goals against him a game. No matter how good the offense is playing, you're not going to win games if your defense is allowing 3 goals a game. So I think the first thing they really need to focus on is going to be the goaltending defense situation. And once they can figure that out, I think everything else will start to fall into place.
And for you, Joe S.?
I think that one issue that Buffalo's going to have to fix is, well, they're only scoring maybe a goal a game. They have very low offensive production, and most of it has come from the forwards. There's no offensive production coming from the point. I don't even know if any of the Sabres defenders have a goal this season. I know a few of them have assists, but there's no offensive production coming from the point. And I think if you're whoever the offensive coach is, I think that's where he starts. You got to get production from the point.
Well, I think for me, they have the pieces, and we've been saying this the past couple of weeks, but the big thing they need to do right now is get healthy again. I mean, I didn't expect the loss of Jack Eichel to be this influential on this team. I mean, they're only averaging about a goal per game, like Joe just said, and also Evander Kane. That he returned to the lineup, but he hasn't really been himself yet. But to me, the thing, because I was at the game Friday against New Jersey, and I thought they were going to come away with it. And it's ironic that another Buffalo sports team gets another questionable goal called to end the game, but their penalty kill has really improved this past week. They killed a 5-on-3 against New Jersey, especially with all these young guys in the lineup. But right now, I think they're fine. They just need to get healthy again.
I was also at that game on Friday night. That was a very questionable call on Evander Kane. But touching back on the things that I feel that the Sabres need to improve on, I think they have to improve on a lot of things. But zoning in on one place, they need to score the puck more. They currently are second to last in goals scored with 29 on the season. And like you said, the loss of Jack Eichel has really hurt them. And I feel like once he comes back, maybe they will be able. I don't think they're dead in the water yet. They're eliminated or anything. I think they still have a chance to maybe get one of those later seeds in the playoffs. But I think when Jack Eichel comes back, it'll definitely help them to keep on moving forward and trying to push for breaking their playoff streak.
And the other thing too is that when Eichel comes back, you'll be able to have more scorers on each line, because now it's basically Okposo, Reinhart, and O'Reilly on just one line. Now you can separate them more, but still early in the season.
Yeah, definitely. And moving on to the NBA. The NBA season is about a month in, and it's definitely already been exciting for its fans. The Cleveland Cavaliers currently sit atop the Eastern Conference with a record of 8-1. And then over in the Western Conference, the Los Angeles Clippers are in first with a record of 10-1 on the season. So guys, what players and teams have stood out to you already this season? I'll go to you first, Joe.
Well, I think that the player for me right now is Russell Westbrook from the Oklahoma City Thunder. And right now, he looks like a man on a mission, averaging 32 points per game and nearly 10 boards and 10 assists per game, already with 5 double-doubles. And just the way that he has been able to lead the Oklahoma City Thunder with their controversy without Kevin Durant, and as he went to Golden State, and they're off to a hot start too. But Oklahoma City, you can't count them out yet because they just have so much talent on that team, and it starts with their point guard and Russell Westbrook. And the team, for me, I'm not going to say the Thunder, but I think it's going to be the LA Lakers that have stood out for me. They're 6-5 as of this taping, and just what Luke Walton has done so far with this young core of the Lakers has been unbelievable. And their surprise win over Golden State, which was, I did not expect that at all, but those are the type of wins, Sam, that really rallies the young guys together. And this could be a team that could make a push for the finals in a few years. And I'm really impressed with the guards and Brandon Ingram and D'Angelo Russell and Julius Randle, too, coming back from his injury. So the Lakers, I don't see them making the postseason this year, but a couple of years you have to put them up there.
And going to you, other Jim.
There are two guys I have in mind. One, Damian Lillard. He's nearly scoring 31 points a game. It's at 30.7 right now. And I think, and Portland is up there, 7-4, I believe, is their record. So they've been doing well. And then the other guy is LeBron James in Cleveland, and he has 9 assists a game. I think that's pretty substantial right there. And for a guy who's known for putting up a lot of points too, it means he's passing the ball around.
For you, Brian.
Well, there's been a number of players who have stood out to me, including Dwayne Wade, James Harden, but the player I'm focusing on is DeMar DeRozan. He's been having a career season so far this year. He's averaging 34 points a game. He's leading his team to a 7-2 record on the season, and he's the first player since Michael Jordan to score 30 points in the team's first 8 of their 9 games. Now, to do something that no one's done since Michael Jordan, that's impressive in itself. So he's been having a great year so far. It'll be curious to see if he'll be able to keep up this high level of scoring and this high level of play. But given who he has around him, I think he'll be okay. Now, the team I'm focusing on, as you mentioned earlier, Sam, the Los Angeles Clippers. They've gotten out to a great start. They currently sit at the top of the league in the power rankings. You know, everyone always questions, when is it finally going to be the Clippers' year? When are they finally going to make a push in the playoffs, maybe even win the finals? Could it be this year? It could. You know, the past few seasons, they've been a first-round and out team. But this year, they seem to have a certain poise, certain posture about them that says, this is going to be our year. We're finally going to make a push.
For me, I'm going to be focusing in on the Houston Rockets. They lost to Dwight Howard last season. Now James Harden, he's fifth in the league right now with 30.3 points per game. He is leading the league actually with 12.6 assists per game. It's definitely helped that team. You didn't see James Harden passing the ball a lot in those first couple of years, and he wasn't playing a lot of defense in his first couple of years. That was the criticism of him, and it's definitely stepped up this year. And definitely the Houston Rockets are a team that kind of surprised me a little bit. They have a 6-4 record on the year. It's early still. They're fifth in the Western Conference, and I feel like they have time to improve, and they can be one of the top teams in the West. So coming up, we break down the latest from Canisius Athletics from the last 336 hours, as well as a look at the men's basketball 2016-17 campaign. That and more when Inside the Nest rolls along.
A Canisius education is packed with extraordinary opportunities like top-level scientific research, global service experiences, and real-world connections. Want to intern at a Fortune 500 company? Want to get into the best medical and law schools? Want to be a champion for social justice? You can. Here.
Welcome back to Inside the Nest. Here's the latest on what happened since our last broadcast. The men's soccer team seasons ended on Friday after a loss to the Quinnipiac Bobcats in the semifinal of the 2016 MAC Men's Soccer Championship. This was definitely a big season for the Griffs, as it was the third time that the team had reached the semifinal round. Also, senior Thomas Toypin was announced as the 2016 MAC Defensive Player of the Year. It was a good overall great season for the Griffs. Good job, guys. And on to the court, the women's basketball team was defeated by Northeastern on Sunday, losing 83-89. The Griffs' offense struggled and was only able to shoot 37.5% from the field. Margaret Haffendogger and Maria Welch led the Griffs in points with 14. And on to the ice. The Griffs have a record of 2-2 in their last 4 games, and these games were against conference opponents. The Griffs defeated RIT in both of the games that the teams met. That was 2 weekends ago. Senior goaltender Charles Williams got the start and win in both games, improving his record to 4-2-1 on the season. Last weekend, the Griffs traveled to West Point and lost both games against Army. In the 2 games, the Griffs were outscored 8-2. Going back to the court, the men's basketball team battled early against the Kentucky Wildcats, even leading the Wildcats 29-23 with 5:44 left in the first half. However, that lead didn't hold long as the Griffs went on to lose the game 93-69. Junior Cassius Robertson led the Griffs with 16 points in the game. Now let's go to a little bit of discussion here. Guys, what is your reaction from the game against Kentucky? I'll start with you, Joe.
Well, I think just their great start overall. I mean, nobody expected them to have that 29-23 lead with 5:44 left to go in the first half. And just what I took away is that it was going to be a tough task, but I loved how head coach Reggie Witherspoon was able to prepare these young guys. Half of his roster was the first time they ever played a game for their college basketball careers, which was a great experience for them. I know that's what the guys said afterwards. And the other thing, too, is that Isaiah Briscoe was the main guy for the Wildcats, and he's going to be one of the names you're going to want to keep an eye on if you're a college basketball junkie like me. And the other interesting thing, too, that I found is that Canisius hasn't won over a number 2 team since their 4-overtime win over North Carolina State in the 1956 NCAA tournament. So right there, that shows that they really haven't had a lot of success against these top ranked teams. But it was a great start to the Reggie Witherspoon era, and it's going to be a great season for the Griffs.
And for you, Joe?
I think the first problem they ran into was foul trouble. You can't take that many fouls in the first half, and it showed in the second half when players, when a few players fouled out, and then you saw the depth of the Kentucky bench take over. So I think that for the Griffins, they played well. You know, they were ahead for a while, as you said, but I think that they can't afford to take that many fouls again.
For you, Brian.
Well, you know, Canisius, they gave the number 2 team in the country a pretty good run for their money. You know, throughout the first half, much of the momentum pretty much belonged to Canisius. You know, they started out the game early, going on a 9-0 run. They were up 92 early. It was much back and forth throughout the game. Both teams getting up by a point, then being down by a point throughout much of the first half. So it was really impressive. And for most of the first half, people thought how is Canisius still in this? How is this still a game? You're playing Kentucky. They have countless numbers of 5-star recruits on their team. And then just when everyone thought it was going to be a game throughout the whole game, Kentucky went on a run to end the second half, or in the first half. They were up by 11 at halftime, and they just rode that momentum the rest of the game, and there was no looking back.
Like I said, what stood out to me about the Griffs is that they just were not holding back in this game. A lot of people were going in saying that they're going to lose this game big, and in that first half, they just looked like they were just trying to play on the same level as Kentucky. They had a lot of confidence, a lot of baskets were draining, especially for Cassius Robertson. What a big game for him. And this honestly was just such a surprise to everyone. Like you said, everyone was like going upset alert maybe in this game. Canisius is going to beat Kentucky on the road. They did end up losing by over 20, so that happened. But no, like I said, they held the lead in the first half. They played good, and they played with confidence. They played like they were one of the better teams, and they were trying to match up with Kentucky, try to go. Every basket that Kentucky made, they try to go down and make a basket of their own.
And the other thing, too, is that the big guy off the bench for Canisius, Isaiah Reese, what a great start for him. 6 points, 4 boards, 3 steals. Freshman from Miami, he kept the ball moving. So Canisius, they have the pieces. This was a great building block for them going into the rest of the year.
And coming up after the break, we share our final thoughts of the week. You're watching Inside the Nest on Griff TV.
The Golden Griffin Fund is a student-run investment program. We would do all the work that an equity analyst would do in the real world, but we're getting this experience fresh out of college. Coming to Canisius will prepare you for the real world.
This referee's a jackass.
No, I believe that's a zebra.
Welcome back, everybody. We're here with our final thoughts for today's show. Now, my final thought is about SU basketball. Now, guys, I know we're in Buffalo, but I'm from Central New York. I'm a Syracuse guy. So what I have to say is that Jim Boeheim has said this SU basketball team has been the best he's had in a number of years. Now, coming off last season with all their sanctions, losing over 100 games from his past record, no one expected them last year to make it to the Final Four, ranked as a 10th seed in the tournament, but they proved everyone wrong. And this year, what I'm saying is SU is going to make another run back at the Final Four. They have great young guys in freshman Tyus Battle. They have plenty of returners in Tyler Robertson, Tyler Lydon, who is also on the James Wooden watch list. So I expect big things from SU basketball. They're making another Final Four run, people.
All right, for me, we got to expand the college football playoff from 4 teams to 8 teams. With the 4 teams, we have 5 power conferences in this country for college football. And with the 4 teams, it's just assumed that one team is going to be left out every year with 4 teams. And even this year, maybe 2 conferences may be left out because Ohio State and Michigan might both get into the conference, into the playoffs. So, and honestly, who doesn't want to watch more football? I think this would raise the level of competition a little bit. Playoffs would be very good to watch and make it a little bit more entertaining. That's just for me. For you, Joe S.
Okay, two quick things. I think that this week your primetime games in football are going to be your games to watch for the weekend. You got on Thursday night, you got the Saints and the Panthers. On Sunday night, you got the Packers versus the Redskins. And then on Monday night, you got the Texans and the Raiders. And I'm also going to throw out a score prediction. Sabres play the Blues tonight. I have the Blues 3-1.
Well, my final out of the week is this one. Well, Donald Trump's campaign slogan has always been "Make America Great Again." And while I guess you could say that the Dallas Cowboys have made the NFL great again, they're at the top of the NFC right now with an 8-1 record, and Dak Prescott has completely changed the Dallas Cowboys organization around. This isn't the case of Colt McCoy or insert the other bunch of quarterbacks that have had to fill in for Tony Romo. This is the future for the Dallas Cowboys, and we are witnessing something that we haven't witnessed in years, possibly since Tom Brady took over for Drew Bledsoe back in the 2000s. But so far, in just 9 career games in the NFL, 14 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, over 2,300 passing yards, and 106.2 passer rating. And the other thing, too, is he has the great guy in the backfield with Ezekiel Elliott. 1,005 yards rushing in just 9 career games. We haven't seen that either. The 1-2 punch in Dallas has been unbelievable this season, and that's why they're my favorite for the NFC. And the other thing, too, is that they have the wide receiving core, and Des Bryant, who caught the go-ahead touchdown against Pittsburgh last Sunday, just a couple of days after his dad passed away, and also Jason Witten. You could say that he is the security blanket of the NFL because he's been one of the most successful tight ends that we've seen in this generation. But for me, it's going to be the Dallas Cowboys that everybody's going to have to go past in the NFC.
All right. Thank you guys for joining us today. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in to Inside the Nest on Griff TV. And remember to like Griff TV on Facebook.